A question I see asked in a lot of DC Comics gaming circles is, why can't they make a good Superman game? And I'm like, what are you talking about? They did make a good Superman game. The Death and Return of Superman for Super Nintendo. The Death and Return of Superman is a single-player beat-em-up game developed by Blizzard Entertainment and published by Sunsoft. Released for the Super Nintendo console in August of 1994, before being ported over to the Sega Genesis 1 year later. It stars Superman in one of his most iconic stories yet, his death. The game has 10 levels overall, 3 of which you play as the OG Superman, Clark Kent. In the other stages you cycle between Cyborg Superman, the Eradicator, Superboy, and Steel. You don't get to choose your character, so the game just switches for you based on the current of the story. In the first stage you're fighting Underworlders who took over Metropolis, and yes, things like bullets and such can hurt Superman. It's understandable that they had to eliminate the invulnerability factor of Superman's powers in order to make the game challenging. Otherwise, it would be too easy. I always thought that Superman would be rather interesting if he had all his powers, but something as simple as a bullet could still kill him. But that's just me. In the second and third stages you fight Doomsday, which are the only levels where Doomsday is active. You see Doomsday at least one more time during a Cyborg stage where he takes the body and throws it into the depths of space. Good idea. The game for the most part is a typical beat-em-up side-scrolling action game, with some shooter stages sprinkled in for good measure. During the shooting stages you'll be flying across the screen firing at multiple enemies. In one of these stages you play as Superboy trying to take down a missile launched by Cyborg to destroy Metropolis. In between levels are cut scenes of images of different characters and locations with dialogue and narration explaining the plot. Then it cuts to the title of the stage over the Superman logo. While Doomsday was a major player in the actual issue where Superman dies, the main villain of the game is in fact not Doomsday, but Cyborg, who destroys Coast City to create Engine City and sees to it that Metropolis is destroyed. The real Superman comes back halfway through the game in a black and silver suit, but you don't get to play at him in that sprite, which is a shame in my mind. He's featured in the cutscenes while you continue to play as both Steel and Superboy. In the very last stage you see Superman get attacked, and then he reverts back to his base form from the first 2 levels as you play the last and final stage as the real OG Superman and defeat Cyborg once and for all. Then Superman is seen flying, giving a little monologue, and the credits roll, letting you have a breather as you at long last defeated the Death and Return of Superman. If you're enjoying this video, then please remember to click the thumbs up. Overall, The Death and Return of Superman may stand as the only good Superman game ever made, at least until the Injustice games came onto the scene many years later. While it doesn't factor in his invulnerability, it still allows us to play as the Man of Steel, albeit briefly, and other such characters while still providing a decent challenge for players. If you've gone all this time without playing this classic, then I can't recommend it enough. Give it a go on either the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis. Final rating? 10 out of 10.